Exactly 46 years ago today, to the day, the U.S. Supreme Court authorized the mass extinction of tens of millions of preborn children, cloaking the genocide in a made-up out of thin air alleged right to privacy. That right to privacy then went on to hatch even more destruction against the family, natural law, and so forth. One of the big issues it gave birth to was, again, a never-before-heard-of right to sodomite marriage.
Ah yes, Michael Voris. Still warping reality, I see. Greetings and welcome there, people of YouTube. Today's video is a response to the YouTube channel Church Militant's video, Gay is Anti-Life, which is an amazingly self-unaware video in the arguments it makes, particularly surrounding the idea of life starting at fertilization. But I just want to note something here. You say that abortion access was promoted 46 years ago on the quote, made up out of thin air, alleged right to privacy, end quote. Putting aside the facts that all human laws are created, 46 years ago would have been 1973. So clearly you're talking about the 1973 Roe v. Wade Supreme Court case. The problem? Right to privacy was included in Article 12 of the original Universal Declaration of Human Rights created in December of 1948. 69 years ago. To quote the article as originally written, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to protection of the law against such interference or attacks. End quote. And just for clarification, yes, your issue of abortion is completely arbitrary. Your desire to enforce biological slavery by every definition of the term, so that a clump of cells may become a person, is as baseless as teaching that menstruation or ejaculation is murder. It's also entirely irrelevant since even if it were a person, you can't violate one person's bodily autonomy for another person's medical needs. I couldn't assault you and take one of your kidneys or a part of your liver to save an actual, living, breathing, conscious child in the next room. Hell, I couldn't even take your blood and that shit comes back. That right there ends the abortion debate. This isn't about saving lives, this is about enslaving women, though in effect it also impacts trans men and some non-binary folk. As for the right to sodomite marriage, there is no such thing. There's just the right to marriage, something that includes same-gender variants. Fun fact, gay people were getting married in Europe until the Christianization of Rome in the 4th century and the writings of the Theodosian Code. So it's actually Christians who changed the definition of marriage to suit their bigoted ass views. All we did is change things back. You're very much welcome. But moving on.
Well, those two issues linked arms and joined forces a few days ago in a Catholic setting as two homosexual men stood in front of a parish just before Sunday Mass with their little boy, Cohen, and presented a syrupy presentation about just how normal they are and how completely ordinary their situation is. More to the point, they waxed on about how the parish was so welcoming and accepting and how wonderful all the people in it were. They were inspired to start going there regularly because on an earlier trip they had seen a lesbian couple bringing up the gifts and being all warmly accepted. At the end of their 7-minute presentation, rife with heresy, they received a standing ovation from the warm, friendly, accepting Church of Nice parishioners, who just ate it all up. The normalization of not just homosexuality anymore in Catholic parishes, but now on top of it, the accompanying child abuse that occurs when a child is born of a sodomite pairing. Yes, we said born, because this child was not adopted. The little boy, Cohen, is a product of in vitro fertilization and a woman whose womb the homosexuals rented, because natural law prevents them from having sex, conceiving, bearing, and giving birth. So they used technological ability, every one of them they could find at their disposal, to simply skirt all the church's teaching further and bring a new life into the world, willfully depriving that little boy of his God-given right to a mommy.
Look, not everyone has the same Freudian feelings for their mother as you do, okay? But I do love the irony here in you complaining about people using their God-given brain to outsmart you're God. Like, I get a great deal of satisfaction from that. Though it's amazing to see just how quickly you label the mere existence of a healthy, happy, functioning family as abusive, and yet you spend very little time taking issue with the permittance of child rape in the Bible. And this isn't a U2 fallacy. One is a child being raised in a supportive and nurturing environment to become a perfectly well-rounded individual. The other is child rape. Sort your damn priorities.
And the pastor allowed this, and the crowd went wild. And the bishop, well, he did issue a statement expressing his displeasure and said he would be meeting to discuss the situation after he gets back from the March for Life events in Washington, D.C. Well, time's up on that one. The diocese is the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis. The parish is St. Joan of Arc, and the bishop is Archbishop Bernard Hebda. The two clerical clowns who run the parish are the pastor, Father Jim de Brookrier, and the parochial vicar, Father James Cassidy. You wouldn't even know either one of them are priests. These men allow this evil to take place. In fact, they encourage it. Every Sunday, whatever wild-eyed modernist who wants to ramble on about gay this or that, or immigration, or trans this or that, or climate change, is invited to get up and speak for a few minutes on just how Catholic their immorality is. Oh, it's how central to their faith.
Okay. The fact that you're anti-science when it comes to climate change doesn't strike me as odd. But how the fuck is acknowledging climate change a form of, quote, immorality, end quote? Like, I expected the anti-gay, anti-immigrant, and anti-trans shtick. But climate change just came out of nowhere. Also, you're a white European living in North America. Your lack of self-awareness is really showing here.
For example, the gay lovers told the fawning audience, and at this point, that's all this parish is, an audience, that it was good for Cohen to have two fathers.
My name is Alan Noctaville. And I'm Blake Wilson, and this is Cohen. And we were so excited and humbled when JP asked if we would come and talk a little bit about how we decided to baptize Cohen in the Catholic faith. And we thought, well, it kind of makes sense because just like Jesus, Cohen also has two dads, and he turned out pretty great.
Michael Voris, if that joke upsets you, then I can't wait to point out the facts that according to the scripture, Jesus was a rape baby. Look, I don't like the whole religion thing. Shocking, I know. But to see an apparently grown-ass man like yourself take insult over such a innocuous remark is really just sad. Like, have you ever thought of actually doing something meaningful with your life? Something that doesn't require you to sulk every time anyone is happy? Though, I guess if you stopped, you'd have to find another way to feed that inflated ego you have to cart around everywhere. But here is where things get really interesting.
They also simply passed right over the horror of IVF, in vitro fertilization, again, speaking of it in purely ordinary terms. And this is where the gay, anti-life crowd finds its footing. Surely these two sodomites posing as actual Catholics must know that the IVF method automatically results in the death of many other children as part of the process. Various eggs, by the way, where two men get female eggs, are all fertilized. They're allowed to grow for a period, and then the ones determined to be best suited to come to full term are then implanted, in this case, in a rented womb. The others, meaning the other humans, well, they're discarded, a short little euphemism for killed. If, as is pretty routine with IVF, more than one tiny human was implanted in the rent-a-womb surrogate, at some point, selection is made again and the leftovers are killed in utero. This is malevolent. Are the two homo dads going to tell little Cohen that in order for him to come into existence, they had to kill off some brothers and sisters of his because since all they can do is sodomize each other, they had to resort to science? Are they going to tell him that they actively chose to deny him a mommy because in the end, all they cared about was trying to make their sodomy look normal?
Now, this is wonderful. Normally when dealing with the pro-biological slavery, anti-abortion folk, they'll say that life begins at conception. But the moment I press forward with the facts that I'm about to raise, they sort of withdraw. But you can't do that. Fun fact, more than half of all fertilized eggs fail to implant naturally, and more embryos will fail to develop over the typical 9 months. So if anything, that part of IVF is close to a typical conception. Now you don't hold a funeral for every birth, as there's some party that knows that you're talking total utter bollocks. Life only begins at conception when it's used to enslave others who you view as lesser, but oddly enough, not when it's a mild inconvenience to you. Fact is, according to scripture, God has direct control over the womb and one's ability to conceive. This is something shown in Genesis chapter 30 with Jacob and the dueling vaginas. So if the Bible is true, God is responsible for actively killing a child, according to you, one for every person alive today. Which got me thinking, if killing children is godly and Christ is God, does that mean you view IVF and abortion doctors as being Christ-like? Because that's what logically follows on from all the crap you are asserting. Now, of course, an embryo is not a person. That's a fact we shouldn't lose sight of. So no, there is no extinction or genocide taking place. There's just an angry man in a shitty wig crying because we don't let him enslave half of the human population. I mean, how shitty a person do you have to be to go after IVF? Yes, LGBT+ folk are partial to it, but they're not the only users. It certainly wasn't designed for them in mind. Many heterosexual people, including Catholics, use said methods as it's the only way for them to bear children. Also, stop pretending like you've sussed their motives. Their motives are exactly the same as when cis heterosexual people use IVF. They're not part of a performance, they're a family.
But perhaps most pressing is this. Is Archbishop Hebda going to move to laicize the clergy that promote this horror, those 2 priests? And is he going to disband that parish, which doesn't even call itself a parish? It's that famous word, Catholic community. Hebda did not necessarily cause this issue, at least not at this parish, but he's certainly responsible now for stopping it dead in its tracks. If that parish is still around, if those priests are still around at the end of the month, that will tell you everything you need to know about Archbishop Hebda.
I really hope it does get shut down. Why? Because all that will do is reveal what the Catholic Church has always been and hopefully get more people to leave your little paedophile protecting service. Because that's what it is. You're losing, Michael. You're not just lacking the moral high ground, you're neck deep in immoral quicksand. Returning to what I talked about at the start, the way in which you can't take a person's blood without their medical consent due to bodily autonomy, the same is true for the dead. Unless someone has given permission for their body or the body of a loved one to be used, you legally cannot. The sickening thing this reveals is the fact that a person with a functioning womb, their right to bodily autonomy is respected more once they're dead. And you have the gall to call yourself pro-life. You're not pro-life, you're pro-death. And that's just fucked up. But that's religion for you. Take care now. Hi there. I'd just like to say a few things here at the end of the video. First, I'd like to thank everyone who has ever donated to the channel via Patreon, giving a special thanks to the following people: Hannah Banghart, Matthew Kovac, Brad R, John Schoenrock, Alexander Williams, Rain Kilmore, and Daniel Martinez. Your support has ensured this channel's ability to grow over the years and really is the only thing that manages to keep the channel afloat. I'd also like to request that you comment down below and like this video, as well as subscribe and follow Essence of Thought on Facebook and Twitter. Please also consider following Atheist Alliance International on Facebook, an organisation dedicated to helping atheists around the globe. Any comments utilising language which insults others on the basis of perceived gender, sexuality, ethnicity, or ability both mental and physical will be removed immediately, and the commenter may be blocked on the moderator's discretion. Let's keep this space one which upholds the humanist values. Thank you.